everyone, my name is Gabriel Montalvo and I will be your host for this edition of Talking GOP. Recently, we just had another great CPAC 2020. I just came back from there, got to hear the Vice President and the President speak about how they are going to keep America great and another 4 more years. Very invigorating, and I hope that we can keep the same energy, not only here in Queens, across New York State, and in the country. It was really invigorating. I actually got to meet with David Zier, got to meet with, or see Candace Owens, Michael Knowles, Nigel Farage, the list goes on and on. Great energy. Everyone's excited for this upcoming election in November, the presidential election to re-elect our great president, Donald Trump. But being that we are here today, here in Talking GOP, we will be speaking with a very special guest who's running for New York State Senate, Mr. Tom Sullivan. Tom.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on the show. So, before we get into your race, can we just tell our viewers who is Tom Sullivan?
Well, Tom Sullivan, as a young 20-year-old, was aspiring to be the governor of New York someday. And that conversation happened very late hours with a newlywed.
Oh,
and
really?
It prolonged into a long evening discussion.
Right.
That being said, I had prefaced that comment to my wife, that first I wanted to go out and be you know, a person of the people and work with them, work in the private sector. At that time, I was also a newly commissioned officer in the Army. I had aspirations of opening up another a restaurant from the original restaurant that the family owns. And, you know, fast forward 27 years later, here I am, 27 years in the financial services industry, 27 years as a military officer, now a colonel, brigade commander. I own the restaurant. I'm associated and do business for the family business that's been in business since 1938, 82 years.
Yes.
And I was also elected member of my local community board to balance the budget, secure the community, provide activities for the adults and the youth of the community. So
everything that you said has to do with public service and helping people. And it seems that you want to take that over now from not only serving our nation, but also serving our nation in the capacity of in state senate. So what was it like commissioning? Let's start with that.
Sure, it was probably one of the proudest moments of my life. Had my family there, my entire family, 7 brothers, mother, father, 6 sister-in-laws at the time. I'm sorry, 5 sister-in-laws.
Wow.
We now have a 6th. And yeah, it was a proud moment for my father, who had to go to school at night while being a New York City police officer. And my mother went from high school into nursing school. And I had 2 brothers that went to the military academy, 3 that stayed local. And I was one that kind of went, you know, away from home for a while. You know, not to a military academy, but I did do ROTC. Right,
ROTC. And how would you say your military experience, do you think that anything that you've learned while, I guess, on the trail has helped prepare you for this upcoming race in politics?
Well, one of the things I think I'm most proud of, you know, I've led companies and battalions, and now a brigade, and I've led them in combat. And these units were from Queens, possibly the most diverse units you have out there in the entire Army, right? Queens being one of the most diverse communities, and being in the Army Reserves, we have everybody's local. Right. So we had Asian, Hispanic, Irish,
dealing
Italian,
with all sorts of people with different backgrounds.
And I'll tell you, there's a lot of truth to it. Is that, you know, when you wear the uniform, you're all one, one team, one fight, one goal in mind, and that's to do your job and come home safe.
Right. I mean, when they shaved our heads at Fort Benning, we couldn't tell anyone apart, let alone the drill sergeants. And so this is now, you had mentioned combat, so you've gone on how many deployments?
3 overseas deployment and 1 what we call Continental United States, CONUS deployment. That was early in 2003 when things had progressed well, and so we got caught up at Fort Dix. They didn't need another flow of surge of soldiers, but they quickly turned bad, right?
Right, of course.
So future deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan and Kuwait would follow. You know, start to lose track of the years, but 2006, 2009, and most recently 2016 to Afghanistan.
Right. Now, the president has recently announced that there was going to be, not necessarily peace in the Middle East, but we'll be withdrawing U.S. forces. What's your take on that?
You know, it's interesting. There was a time where I was dead set against it because there was still work to do.
Exactly.
When I started hearing about the talks, I've came to the realization that a lot had been done, and you can't stay forever.
Right.
And so to sum it up, it is time. We've America. It's sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters have given it their all. We've given our treasure, and we've given them, the Afghani people, every opportunity to stand up on their own, and it's now for them to take the reins. I agree with the decision.
Right.
And the more and more I think about it, the more and more happy I feel that that's actually going to happen.
Definitely, and not too many people understood why we were there in the first place, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, sir, but it was to try and help the Afghan National Army find ways to combat these insurgency groups like the Taliban, like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, wherever they may be. And not too many people were very much aware that we were there to not necessarily be an imperialistic force, but to really train people to eventually fight for themselves. And most of our operations were, you know, changing hearts and minds, as we say, as opposed to the propaganda that that the insurgency spreads about us, and which in turn gets picked up by the media. And it seems like the media is more interested in making our nation look worse than, you know, shedding the truth on the situation of what we've been doing.
So like I said, for someone who's been on the ground in multiple places in the Middle East, I never for one moment ever thought we were there to you know, take over somebody's country.
Right.
And to go back to your earlier question, the reasons we were there were many, right? Everything, you know, what propelled us there was the fact that they were harboring a terrorist that attacked the United States. And they planned, they resourced those operations from Afghanistan. And we immediately engaged and put them on the run, and we cannot give them, nor can any other country, nor should they, harbor people who plan and plot terrorist acts on other nations from afar.
Right.
So we went in, and then it gets complicated, right, with the various groups, and trying to establish a government is not easy. You know, I would encourage people to go back and read about the American Revolution.
Yes.
You know, we took our bumps and bruises too in the early stages of a new nation.
Right, right. And I also want to get your take on the response of President Trump giving the order to take out Soleimani in Iran. I mean, I see the president when it comes to military force. This isn't, I'd say, like the Bush years where we're going in and starting, you know, 2 wars, well, responding to, you know, threats actually, and responding to actions that they've taken against this great nation. What are your thoughts to the media saying that Trump is, you know, the most violent, warmongering person that you've seen? They've been protecting Soleimani. They criticized him for sending the Marines to the embassy when he promised that he would not let this country have another Benghazi, and he wouldn't let this country be, you know, threatened anymore through terrorists.
Well, I will tell you, you know, again, as a soldier and as a citizen, my impression of the president is that he truly doesn't want this war.
Right.
And he made a commitment to the American people coming in that he would end the endless wars. And I truly believe everything he's doing is heading that direction. I have no misconception otherwise.
Right.
I knew it could not happen overnight. Our president, our commander-in-chief, knew that could not happen overnight, and it had to have been done smartly. And we could not leave as a sign of weakness, but as a sign of strength.
Right.
And he's done that. And he's, everything is conditions-based, right?
Yes.
And eventually, he and I think many of our military leaders came to the realization that the Taliban has to be a partner in peace. And that's where we ultimately got.
Right. So, well, thank you for giving us that insight. Now, moving to your election, this is the second time you're running for state senate. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
So, what have you learned from your first time, as opposed to what you plan on changing now?
Yeah, we would need an hour segment on that alone. But first, I had a very positive experience, and again, I would want the New Yorkers, the American public, to know that it's not all nasty. Right. We ran a clean campaign. Senator Dabo is a gentleman. I just happen to very much disagree with some of the things he's supported. Right. And I don't think that's the direction our area should be going in. And that's why I'm, going out there and running. Right. So some of the things I learned is, you can't get out on the streets enough, right? Right. But one of the things I believe about our politics is that I don't believe in being a career politician, and I want to come here and do my service, civic duty to my state. And if I'm not promoted to governor or to a congressman, then I will give a minimum of if I'm blessed to do 6 years, then that's what I would like to do, and then seek either greater positions or give somebody else with new energy and new ideas a chance. And because ultimately you get tied into the system, and you're not serving the people's needs. Right. So, what do you say? What are the points that you disagree with Senator Dabo the most? What are those points that really make you? Well, I think we would have to start with something that was most recent and prevalent, and that's the no bail law, right? Oh yes, the famous bail reform. I don't know on what level this was acceptable by any means. I do know, just like anything, no system is perfect. What we had in place was not perfect, and I did a little research too. We don't have innocent people in Rikers Islands. We don't put turnstile jumpers and jaywalkers and someone who gets caught with the above limit on marijuana into Rikers Island because they don't have money to do that. Okay, so that's a bad narrative. Definitely. That I think the Democrats put out there. I think it's irresponsible that they put that out there. But to try and right a wrong in some people's minds, the pendulum got swung all the way to the other side, and you could look at the statistics. I was watching them outside on the TV there. 26% jump in some major crimes, and car theft, which I've been a victim of. Back in '99, really? I remember I came out, my car was up on crates, and that's exactly what they were talking about. Right, that's starting 66%. 66%. 66%. That's what I saw on New York 1. Wow. So that's disturbing. I think we've lost sight of the tax-paying, law-abiding citizen. I agree. And their right to send their children off to school safely and return home safely, to go to work, to a job safely and return home safely. We're losing sight of that. Right. We're focused on, this wrong that might have been, done years ago. Right. And so you had mentioned that, as your time, commanding and leading your troops, that
being from Queens especially, that you saw such a diverse group of people. And the reason why I bring that up is because a lot of people say, or a lot of the Democrats say, and the news pundits are saying that the bail reform was introduced as a way to curb the racist system that we have here in the NYPD or the justice system as a whole. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with what they're saying? Do you find any sort of validity, or do you find it's just like talking points to try and rally behind some false cause?
So I think there's combinations there, and I think there are some folks out there that will use real numbers to twist the narrative. You know, I think life is full of biases. We're born with these inherent biases, and we grow up in certain areas, and we have certain views, and we have our parents, and we didn't choose their thoughts. And then you go off, and you get experiences on your own, right? When I was in college, you know, my wife wasn't going to work. She's now been working for 25 years, right? Nobody else was going to watch my kids during the day except for, you know, me or my wife. And you know, then you grow up. You go out and you get a job, and your wife gets a job, and you realize what it takes to buy a home. And so yeah, you have to learn to grow up, and that's one of the things that concerns me. I think with the generation right now, they want it right now. I just got my master's degree about 2 years ago.
Well, congratulations.
And it was, thank you, and it was paid for, you know, with my service to this country. And so I don't know where the instant gratification comes from. I think ultimately we work for better pay. We work to improve ourselves and our families' lives.
The false sense of entitlement that's being bestowed.
Yeah, it's the and I don't want to cast it on the whole you know, generation, right? But now we have responsible adults like Senator Sanders, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he's spreading this narrative of free tuition, and what will, my question to them would, what will be next? Are they gonna tell me where I need to live, and here's a house, and this is where you're going to be, and you know what's next? Here's a job, and this is where you'll go every day, right? He keeps talking about government jobs for everybody.
AOC has said the same thing, and now Representative Ilhan Omar had said that she was looking to give everyone the GI Bill. And I had made a post about it on Facebook, actually, and people said, well, you know, she's not talking about taking away the GI Bill for its veterans or service members. She's just saying to give it to everyone. And I said, we didn't get it because, you know, people like us. We got it because we're doing a service. We earned it.
Correct. We did earn it. And I will tell you this. No, I didn't join the Army for money. Okay?
I don't think many of us did.
We had a calling. My father served. Several of my brothers have served. One is still serving also on active duty. When I saw them, and you know, Republicans and Democrats alike, when they pandered to a portion of the population with something free, I literally sat there and said, you know, even though this will benefit me someday or my children, because I'm going to pass those on to my children, my GI Bill benefits, right? I think I'm grateful to this country. Why? Because that comes out of the taxpayers' money, right? And these programs cost a lot of money, and if they felt that's a benefit we earned, great. But you know, I was just happy serving my country, right?
Yeah, definitely. And what are other points that you are going to challenge Senator Addabbo on?
Well, maybe not him directly, right? But and I wanted to get this in. Everywhere I drive, our infrastructure is falling to pieces, right? We have sewers backing up into homes, into Middle Village and other parts of Queens. Not just one home, hundreds of homes.
Really?
Not just a little bit, but you know, feet of raw sewage, right? The roads are in disrepair. I could take you to a dozen roads just in my neighborhood in Far Rockaway where they dug up the street and never came back to repair it. The sidewalks, I wonder how many lawsuits are coming out of these. I wonder how much damage to people's vehicles. I drive past it every day when I take my kids to school, and it's quite disturbing, right? So we have the subways. We have stuff falling on people's heads, screws, concrete, metal, through their cars. That's also happened in this district as well. Where's the accountability to the money, right? I'm 27 years in the private sector and managing people's money, legal compliance. You know, private sector, we account for every penny against what the narrative is against big bad corporations, right? They provide me a job, they pay for, you know, I get good benefits, sure, but we have full accountability of our finances, otherwise they'd be out of business. Somehow our state is not held to that standard, and we have the mayor's wife, Ms. Charlene McCray, they can't account for $780 million. $780 million.
Yeah,
right?
Any business that does that will be done.
So when it comes to the people's money, right, I believe in limited government.
Of course.
Right? We have to protect our community with law and order, right? So you have your police department, you have your public safety and with the fire department, basic sanitation services with our Department of Sanitation, education, right? And like I said, we're at the point where everybody wants right now. So I support public education to the point of high school, and we should do the best we can with that. And you know what? It's reality in life that if you have to go out and get a job and then work your way through night school, what is wrong with that?
Right,
and here's another point. When did it become so bad or so unacceptable that my children couldn't learn a trade, a plumber, electrician,
that's demonized
a carpenter?
almost.
It really is. And I can tell you for a fact, you know, I now manage people's individual money and do retirement planning and investment planning for college education. My best clients are the ones who struggled the most.
Of course.
And earned it as a plumber, electrician, a carpenter.
Right.
And they're the most interested about their money.
Of course. Now, we see that this entitlement, like the raising of minimum wage, and I tell people, I said, minimum wage is meant to start you off. Or, you know, you get, in New York we have, I think, one of the highest minimum wage rates in the country, if not the highest. And at $15 an hour, you know, you're increasing the amount of expenses that businesses, especially, and even small business owners, have to incur. I mean, now you're a business owner yourself, and you talk about your restaurant. Have you found it any different? How has that affected you?
Oh, greatly. Here's what I think the average person doesn't understand. As soon as they raise the minimum wage, right, my workers' compensation insurance went up, okay? I have to raise prices. That gets passed on to the consumer, right?
Right.
And here's another thing that I find despite, I love this country, but I don't want to give them another penny more than they can't even, I have no confidence that they're managing what they have right now. As soon as you raise the minimum wage, you're now paying more Social Security tax,
right,
and you're paying a higher income tax. So you think you're bringing home $15? You're just paying more in taxes to the city, and where is it going, okay? What concerns me is I've heard people on TV say, how am I supposed to raise a family of 3 on $10 an hour, let's call it? You're not.
Exactly.
You know, that's a job for my high school age kids. That's a job for, you know, me in retirement to go work a couple hours during the week.
Right.
That's a job for me while my husband or wife, the primary income owner, where I could go and work and make a couple of extra dollars a week. You can't support a family on $10 or $15 an hour.
Right, right. Now, we're going to be wrapping up here soon, but I wanted to ask you, the state of the New York GOP, what do you think we need to do to get more Republicans, such as yourself and others, get elected into office? So I'm a candidate, right,
and I'm out here all the time, right? And then I have a team, and they have jobs. I don't expect them to be out here all the time, but one of the conversations I have with them is I ask, give what you can, right, of your time. And, you know, we give a little bit maybe to the church or to the synagogue as far as our time. We give a little bit to the, you know, some give to the little leagues, a ballpark. I would ask that, you know, if you're interested and you're concerned about your community or the way Queens is going, you know, before you decide to move out, which is a whole other problem here in New York,
right,
with people leaving our state,
right,
try and make it better, and come out and support your local candidates. It's not easy. What would they do? I admire, you know, for the most part, the effort that of a lot of our politicians and candidates have to give to doing this.
Definitely. I mean, you're going for round 2, and I think with this this time around, you'll have more time to prepare and to go out there and meet the community a lot more. How much time did you have prior in your first time running?
Well, I was late coming in. I came in June. Now we're coming in March. We have a few dollars where we had none last time.
Right.
I know, you know, have the phone numbers of a lot more phone numbers and a lot more emails. I know it's a very humbling experience to step out of your car and start walking the streets of Middle Village, right?
Right.
Rockaway's a little easier. It's not as many homes, right? But yeah, we're off to a better start, and that's one of the reasons you have to, once you commit once, you're going to want to, you know, from the start commit twice, unless you had a clear signal. We had a great turnout, had a great experience, looking to get more people out there for me, and just a little bit at a time, that's all. Of course.
Now, where can people reach you?
We haven't opened up an office yet. That should be happening soon. Last go, we were out in Broad Channel. We're thinking something up, perhaps, again, like I mentioned, we had a little bit more money this time.
Right.
So we'll probably do something up towards, it's a very long, narrow district. So we'll do something up perhaps in Middle Village, and then maybe something more central like Howard Beach.
All right.
And open those offices. But
social media?
Yep. You can find me on everything, Thomas P. Sullivan.
All right.
LinkedIn, Facebook.
Perfect.
And we'll have a website up soon. You know, we have to file certain things.
All right. It's great. So we'll definitely have you on the show once you have all that up again. We're looking forward to having you again. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for staying with us through this first half hour. Stay tuned for when we have Phil Orenstein to talk more about the upcoming Lincoln Dinner. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Phil Orenstein, president of the Queens Village Republican Club, America's oldest Republican club, and we're having our gala 144th anniversary Lincoln Dinner today. We're celebrating the party of Lincoln. This is a great day to be a Republican in New York. And we're going out, we're going to turn New York red. We're so proud to be celebrating today. Thank you all. We love you.
Welcome back, everyone. You just saw the video. You saw what the energy that Phil Orenstein has. And here is the wonderful and great Phil Orenstein, president of the oldest Republican club in the history of the United States, and with special guest, the first vice president of the Queens Village Republican Club. I give you Phil Orenstein and Joe Concannon. Welcome so much, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Gabriel.
So
pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. We really wanted to have you on for a while now, especially to talk about, as the viewers saw, the upcoming Lincoln Dinner.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big deal. We've got national speakers coming in, and we have one international speaker coming in as well. So we're really pumped. We think it's going to be a great event, and people are really going to be able to enjoy themselves. You know, one of the things that Phil talks about a lot with the dinner is not so much going into the dinner, but how people feel coming out of the dinner. They get so much energy coming out of that dinner. It carries them for weeks beyond the event.
Right. Yeah, it's not just, you know, it is a food festival, but so much more than that. It is a festival for the spirit, for the soul, and for our energy. Because, you know, when people, you know, leave this event, you know, we want to build the Republican Party. We want to build a movement of patriots, of idealists, of, you know, young people who are ready to, you know, to go out there and, you know, change New York City and what's happening to our, you know, beloved city of New York and our borough of Queens.
Take on the world.
Yeah, definitely.
We're going to do it from here in Queens, President Trump's hometown birthplace in Jamaica Estates, Queens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is the date of this event?
It's March 22nd.
All right.
It's at Anton's Caterers, which is a renowned place where, nearly every president, governor of New York State, mayors, top elected officials have been in the last 50 years.
Beautiful venue, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, it's wonderful.
It's a pleasure. Yeah. I know last year we had some great speakers. I was my first time attending, and I really thoroughly enjoyed myself. So any of you guys going to come out, I really recommend you guys come out, get your ticket, be there. It's going to be a real treat.
Yes.
It really is. And like I said, there's a lot of excitement that gets pumped up. We actually ramp up about 3 or 4 months, ahead of the event because we're planning speakers, all sorts of dining things, the menu and everything else going on. But like I said, the really big thing here is the walk away afterwards. All right. That energy that goes into the people that were there. And we get some people that come up to us, Phil, and they say, I never knew there were so many Republicans in Queens.
Yeah.
And that's it's true. We get it's like a grand family meeting.
Right. So
the exciting thing is when people walk into the room and you see 300, 400, 500 like-minded Republican and conservative brethren in one room, all pumped, all excited, here in Queens, which is not seen before. I mean, this type of, energy and patriotism is what, we want to bottle and sell. It's so valuable. And people get really pumped and energized just by walking into the room of fellow patriots.
And just imagine now, the dinner has worked its way right into the Trump organization. All right. We have the chief strategist for the President of the United States, Steve Bannon, coming in and offering his remarks at this event. He'll be our keynote speaker. I mean, that is tremendous.
Right.
Have you heard Steve speak anywhere?
I actually wasn't able to make the event that the New York Young Republicans had in the city, but I did catch the aftermath. They took footage. He's a great speaker.
Steve's a great speaker. Phil and I actually went into the city to meet him when he was previewing his documentary on China. Wow. And it was a thrilling event. And Steve is just a down-to-earth kind of guy. He speaks practically from the standpoint of the average American citizen. Okay. So everybody's like, they automatically know that they're one-to-one with him.
Right.
He doesn't speak over people's heads, from academia or something like that. He's just a really natural, easy to listen to kind of guy.
Yeah, at this documentary screening where he spoke afterwards, the room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. This man is an incredible brain.
Right.
I went up to him afterwards. I jumped out of my seat. Joe said, "Go, Phil, go." And I went up and I was the first person online to meet him. So I said, "Oh, hi, Steve. I'm so honored to be in your presence. I'd like to invite you to be our keynote speaker at our Lincoln dinner on March 22nd. He said to me, "I'd love to."
Wow, that's amazing.
He, took me over to his son.
Really?
So I talked to his son, Sean Bannon. And, we've been planning since then. This was back in December. And we've been, communicating since then, to make it a reality. And finally, we have Steve Bannon coming. Steve Bannon is one of the great, the great figures of our time because he engineered the successful election of President Trump in 2016.
Right.
He honed the policies and gave Trump put it into a focus, into a vision, into a plan of this economic nationalism, of this national security, America First policies. It came from his brain. He was like the Karl Rove of President Trump.
And you also have emceeing the event, the Master of Ceremonies, a dear friend of mine. He was actually on the show, Rich Valdez.
Yeah, Rich Valdez, another, awesome individual, a New Yorker, a really great person, has his own show, This Is America.
Yep.
And the Mr. Call Screener of Mark Levin.
Right.
And he's also like a great person. He's going to be emceeing the event. And should add a lot of vim and vigor to the event and a lot of life. And he has a great mind himself.
And you had mentioned an international guest. Who might that be?
We have Katie Hopkins coming.
Amazing.
All right, Brexit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go.
I mean, Katie has distinguished herself all around the world, quite frankly. You know, with the UK, and now we happen to be able to catch her as she's touring here in the U.S. And the dinner and the timing and everything just happened to work in. And you know, I think when people come to the event, they're going to find her not only informative, all right, and really sticking to the conservative principles, but she knows how to tie it in with humor.
Right.
All right.
Right, there we go.
You know, she's very, very funny, and we think people will enjoy that. You know, because they'll get the serious part with Steve and what's going on. You know, with him and all that, and then you know later on they'll get Katie, and we think as they're leaving the event, you know, it'll be something good to kind of remember. You know, they'll all be laughing, so to speak, as they're walking out the door and saying, "Wow, you know, that was some event in Queens Village. That's absolutely amazing."
Definitely, and you know, it's great that you guys were able to get her to this event, and I think it's so great that not only is this you know, the election year's coming up for our president, but it's a great year for the conservative movement, as we've seen the great winning that the president's been doing for this country. And then on the other hand, we also finally have Brexit and our friends across the pond. And I think that momentum is really going to drive forward with our election here. So, you know, it's really great. Also, this is what I remember off the fly on the top of my head. You're going to have Gavin Wax, if I'm not mistaken, as the
Gavin Wax is the young Republican of the year.
Right.
Another you know, tremendous, passionate, idealistic you know, patriot for the future of New York. Great individual. So he's going to be honored. We just, you know, spoke to him yesterday. You know, he's really pumped. He's excited. He's going to bring other young people. This is for the young, you know, younger generation. We want to do this to connect them with people like Katie Hopkins, with Steve Bannon, you know, to get their energy, to take this and to run with it here in New York City. We believe Queens is the focal point of the next Republican revolution. Like, you know, it happened, you know, in the past with Ronald Reagan, with Newt Gingrich in 1994. It's going to happen again here in Queens. And that's the purpose of our Lincoln Dinner. That's the purpose and the focus of our club, the Queens Village Republican Club. And, you know, we want to generate this passion and excitement right here for people to turn history around.
Of course.
You know, to change, like, you know, New York City, where actually we have very few Republicans elected.
Right.
You know,
that is very true.
to change this this dynamic ultimately. You know, it's going to happen.
It's got to grow from the grassroots.
Of course.
All right, and if all the college students out there and even the juniors and seniors in high school, if all they're hearing is, I call him Bernie Rubble, you know, Bernie Sanders, if all they're hearing is Sanders and AOC, then they're really not getting the full picture about what's going on. And they really don't understand something that Mark Levin has talked quite emphatically about, and that's liberty and tyranny. All right, and they don't understand how their liberty is being sliced. It's almost like a salami slice. One slice right after the other, the Democrats are cutting it off. You know, your access to planes. Well, if Bernie gets in, you know, they want to cut back on planes and flights. I mean, some really crazy things, you know, or increasing the tolls, congestion pricing. All of these things that are going on here in New York, what is that doing? That's restricting your movement as average everyday New Yorkers, or it's putting a heavier cost on it, which is in effect restricting your liberty. All right, and I don't think a lot of the young people really understand that and appreciate that, because all they get from AOC and Sanders is, hey, your college education is too much. Hey, we'll give you free this. Hey, we'll give you free that. You know, it's almost like, you know, getting free popcorn in a movie and just watching these guys popping off one thing right after the other about what should be free.
Yeah, we actually we don't ever see people from socialist countries coming here saying they wish they could go back. You know, no one's leaving the United States in a makeshift raft to go into Cuba or go to Venezuela.
Well, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about freedom. We're talking about liberty, and also reminding the people that, you know, the most valuable thing in life is at stake. You know, you've heard the expression, if you put a frog into boiling water, he'll die or jump out. But if you put him in lukewarm water and slowly raise the temperature, he'll stay in there till he dies. That's what's happening with our liberties today.
Definitely.
And this is a call to wake people up, to change their party registration to Republican, because the Republican Party, our principles and our mission, embraces, the basic fundamentals of liberty, which this country was founded upon, and to elect, those Republicans who could put those policies in place, to stop this, this chain of events now, where our liberties are being taken away, with what's going on with these plastic bags and paper
insane.
bag tax,
Right.
the congestion pricing, the jails in our communities. They're deciding, the elites are deciding our destiny for us.
Right, and I think people like Gavin Wax and the New York Young Republicans are doing a great job. I know for a fact that the Young Republicans out in Long Island, upstate in Syracuse, they're really hitting the pavement, Rockland County even, they're really hitting the pavement to make sure that this message gets out there. So, Gavin Wax has recently done a partnership with my organization, the Republican National Hispanic Assembly. We have announced that we will be doing, working a lot closer together to not only spread our message of conservatism, Republican values to the younger generation, but also to the Hispanic population.
That's great.
Gabe, what's important is perspective, right?
Right.
So Phil and I are older, all right, and we know what it was like.
Speak for yourself, Joe.
We know what it was like when there were 2,300 murders a year in New York City.
Yeah.
And we know what it was like back then. To me, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago. All right, but you might not have been alive at the time.
I was 98. I was born.
Yeah, you were probably very young at least. All right, and we want the young people to understand that perspective. All right, because all they're seeing now is they're seeing a slow, steady increase in crime, disorder, and fear. All right, they weren't back in the day where you were afraid to come out of your house, where you were afraid to go to the local grocery store, buy a loaf of bread or milk or something like that without getting accosted, or even just without being approached by a panhandler or somebody like that. Most of the times when I go into a Dunkin' Donuts for a cup of coffee and maybe a roll or something like that, I'm not expecting, nor do I anticipate somebody coming up to me and saying, "Hey, buddy, you got a couple of extra bucks?" I do those things at church, and other houses of worship and things like that. That's where we give, and we let our faith community, all right, decide how to manage all of these different things, and of course the city agencies to do that as well. But it's the perspective of the young person which we want to improve.
It's definitely getting worse, and I mean, people around my age and are a bit younger that are even teenagers that I would work with when I was a camp counselor, they would say, life here seems to be getting worse. I was recently on my way to CPAC. I went to the Port Authority bus station, and I'm no stranger to it. I usually go about once a month to go to PA, and it just gets worse and worse each month. The saddest thing I saw was a man with a cup asking for change, and another homeless man, and I give this one a little bit more credit, he had his resumes printed out, and he said, "I'll sell it to you for 25 cents. Man came out. It was a really sad sight, but at least he was doing something, and he had his resume out there, and I respect that drive. But there was another one, and we can maybe if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about this whole bail reform. This man approaches me, says, "I just got let out of jail 2 days ago." This is his story, anyways. We can't really verify if it's true or not. He said, "I got let out of jail 2 days ago. I need you to come with me to give me 20 bucks or something." I was like, "Listen, sir, I don't have any cash on me." He's like, "Oh no, I'll take you to an ATM up at Chase." I said, "No, I can't, but what I can do is I can see if I can get you a job to help you start off." He was trying to give me this whole spiel about, yeah, well, my kid, and I need it. I can't verify it. And, I want to help him. I said, the only way I can help you is I can get you some food from that Hudson little shopette and Dunkin' Donuts, and I can try and get you a job. But aside from that, I'm not going to leave,
This all comes down, boils down to a basic truth.
Mm-hmm.
We want to help our fellow man.
Yeah,
we our heart goes out to people who are like suffering or struggling or homeless or have gone over to the dark side and become criminals.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you change this? It's a matter of leadership. And the leadership today, New York is run by Democrats, and they're running it into the ground.
Yes.
This is the cause of the problems. This is why people are out on the street, homeless. It's because of the policies of de Blasio. It's the policies of Cuomo. Cuomo, put a ban on fracking. Pennsylvania is thriving. People are moving to Pennsylvania because you cross the border, and New York is becoming ghost towns upstate. And in New York City, de Blasio's progressive policies are on the way to damaging this city. Economically, we have the stock market. So as long as the stock market is booming, New York City will thrive. But, you can see what's happening. You see what's happening in San Francisco and in Los Angeles. This is Chicago. Policies of socialism, progressivism, radical leftism, that don't put people first.
Right,
and it's one of the takeaways from the dinner.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Everybody, you go into the dinner and everybody's like, oh, I can't believe they just did that. I can't believe they just did that.
Right.
All right. I can't believe they did all these different things. And primarily talking about the city and state agencies. The city of New York calling itself a sanctuary city and all this other garbage,
nonsense.
Right? So you come into the dinner, you hear, of our speakers, you see the awards, how we're highlighting people of really some terrific achievements during their lives, and then you leave that event energized and uplifted that the Republican Party really does, as Phil says, we really do care about what's going on with our fellow man out there. It's just, we believe in teaching people, how to farm, rather than just giving them the fruit.
Of course.
All right, we want them to grow the tree, grow the vegetables, grow whatever it is that they need to grow. Even their own life perspective. We want them to grow as individuals so that they can stand independently on their own 2 feet and not be leaning on the government. All right? The government is there for a reason, as a safety net. All right, not to take care and coddle you for the rest of your life, and that's what de Blasio is doing.
Of course,
and that's exactly what Cuomo's doing.
Yeah, and Joe, I know that that you're a lifelong Republican, but
I am.
Phil, on the other hand, we're talking about the dinner here.
We got him finally.
Yeah, we mentioned.
Thanks, Joe, for pulling me a lifeline.
We mentioned Walkaway, where Brandon Strauch actually spoke last year's dinner, and that was very powerful. Now. You were a Democrat, once a liberal. What was that like, and what made you walk away?
Oh my gosh, I'd rather not remember. But I was actually my awakening came on 9/11. I went through the tragic years, the Dinkin years of New York, and I was a Democrat. I went through the recovery with Rudy Giuliani. I still was a Democrat. I wasn't involved in politics. I walked through life with blinders on. 9/11 woke me up. It was a big wake-up call, mainly because of what happened the day after. On 9/12, I saw American flags everywhere, and I realized for the first time in my heart of hearts how much I loved America, and I realized what America stands for. It stands for all these people from different races, religions, different backgrounds, rich or poor, thin or fat, or every type of human being is together under this principle of liberty and our fundamental truths enshrined in our Constitution, symbolized by the American flag. And I saw these American flags waving everywhere. I would stop and talk to people. People were open to you. We didn't care, where we were from or what color we were or what party we were from. We were all Americans first. And I saw this beautiful vision. And then I saw it collapse because of the political correctness of the left, and they wanted people to be victims and use this crisis to make victims out of Muslims, out of poor people, and start this whole victimization process. It started way before that, of course, but then they were like bashing police, and they were, Al Sharpton was getting up on his podium, and and it was awful. So I changed. I said the Democratic Party has gone so far over to the left. This was back about 12, 15 years ago, and I just changed. I changed my registration to Republican, and then I went looking for.
You not only changed your registration, you changed your entire outlook on life.
That's really
I did,
what it is.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And that's, Gabe, that's really what drives Phil. I see Phil at every one of our club meetings, and he gets up there and he resuscitates what we are as Republicans, independent. He goes through this whole thing at every club meeting, and he does it, and he doesn't memorize it because it's burned in. All right, and he truly believes it. Now I do too, but you could see it with Phil, and anyone. And that's why I love him so much, all right? Because anyone who sees Phil Orenstein knows, that he's got a heart this big, all right? And he truly believes in what he stands for. And that's what really that transformation after 9/11 was for you, Phil. I mean,
that's
it's not
true.
It wasn't just a
very
piece
true.
of paper. It was your entire outlook on life and us here living in the United States of America. We are truly one of the greatest nations on the face of the earth.
Agreed.
And for him, I guess it was an epiphany at that time, and to bring it into focus, and he did, and now you can't stop him.
Well, that's true. That's what we want to do, and that's what the club is all about. That's what the Lincoln Dinner is all about, bringing people together under the American flag, under our Constitution, under our guarantee for our freedoms and our liberties and our rights. People from all walks of life, all colors and creeds. This is what America stands for. This is the beautiful vision of the city on the hill that Ronald Reagan talks about. This was the vision that we want people to be inspired with when they walk out of the Lincoln Dinner and they go back to their communities and they get involved with our club, they get involved with a Republican candidate's campaign, and they get Republicans elected, and they take this spirit, into their lives, and we can have a better way of life. Someone's calling me now, probably my wife. What are you doing, Phil?
Well, the great thing, and I'd say especially what we're doing here on the show, and now it's being put on our social media, is we actually have testimonials from Republicans that challenge any and everything that the Democrats say. They talk to us saying that we are, or they don't talk to us, they like to yell at us, saying that Republicans are racist, that Republicans are bigots, xenophobic, homophobic, all these isms that they throw at us. But here we have people here on the show disputing that. And I want to say thank you for really being able to drive home that message. And, Joe, your message is great. Phil, your message is great, and what you're trying to spread here. Now, where can people get more information about the Queens Village Republican Club, and where can they go to get their tickets?
Go to our website. We have active links to purchase tickets. It's qvgop.org. qvgop.org.
Right.
And you'll see it right on the homepage. All the news, our speakers, Steve Bannon, Katie Hopkins, Rich Valdez. We're also, proud to say that we're honoring, we have an annual Veteran of the Year honoree. And this year we're honoring a World War II veteran who just celebrated his 100th birthday.
Amazing.
Big deal. Really big deal.
And this is the most moving moment of our program, when we honor, you know, one of these veterans who are heroes of the greatest generation, especially, you know, this person who's 100 years old, who's going to be escorted up by our dear friend Lester Friedman, who we honored a couple of years back, another World War II veteran from the U.S. Army Air Corps in the same division as the person who's going to be honored, Philip Kahn, a resident of Great Neck, 100 years old.
It's phenomenal, the energy that you guys are bringing into Queens, and really what you're proving. And
well, thanks for having us on the program. We appreciate it.
We definitely want to say thank you for coming on. And once, I guess, the Lincoln dinner passes, or anywhere in between, we'd love to have the both of you back on again to discuss the history of the party, speak about your service as a NYPD police captain.
Oh, sure. I'd love to come in.
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for our latest edition of Talking GOP. We hope you've enjoyed. Please check us out on our social media page on Facebook and on Instagram at Talking GOP. And if you have any questions, suggestions, or you'd like to come on our show, email us at talkinggopshow@gmail.com. Thank you so much for spending your hour with us, and we'll see you next time.